Hey everyone, Regal Reviews here. So today's video is going to be a little bit more different than my Survivor recaps. I've kind of taken a break with Survivor recaps for this season. I'm going to go back to an old series that I used to do videos about. This is going to be a new video in my I Have Autism series, and today's video will be entitled I Have Autism, Gilda Radner. So, for those of you who haven't seen my I Have Autism series before, basically the videos vary, either talking about like some trials I've went through or a movie that meant a lot to me, or in an actor or actress that made an impact on my life. Basically things like that are experiences I've had. But today's video is going to be about Gilda Radner. Gilda Radner, love her. So for those of you that don't know who Gilda Radner is, she is one of the original cast members for Saturday Night Live. In fact, she was the very first person hired for Saturday Night Live. And if you see the video, I think they call it Screen Test, you could see why she was the first hire, because she's just incredibly talented. So my journey with Gilda started many years ago. So to give a little whole backstory about my connection with Gilda and why she ties into my I Have Autism series. So we're gonna go back a few years ago to when I was just a little kid. As you can see, I have curly hair, like really big, thick, brown curly hair, and Gilda has brown, big, thick, curly hair. And my hair sometimes it's naturally curly, but sometimes it'll be wavy, sometimes it'll be like a little ringlet curl naturally, but then sometimes you'll have like this. It basically does whatever it wants. I can straighten it till it's flat. I walk outside for 10 minutes. It looks like I just put a fork in an electrical socket and I got a new hairdo out of it. Like, it's insane. And for years, I only thought that you were pretty if you had straight hair. I never thought that I was pretty if I had curly hair. But anyway, so obviously, this era, like when I was a kid, I would wake up in the morning and have a serious case of bedhead times like infinity. I'd walk downstairs and my mom would say, "Oh, look, there's Rosanna Dana." I had no clue who she was talking about, but all the time she would say, "Oh, you and your Rosanna Dana hair," or "Here comes Rosanna Dana." I had no idea who this person was. All I knew was my hair looked like Rosanna Dana. Fast forward a little bit, every year, maybe like once or twice a year, we'd go to New York City, usually the week or two before Christmas, or sometime in the spring. This particular trip to New York was in the wintertime, and we went to the NBC studio store. And, we're looking around, and my mom is at this little stand inside that sells magnets. And she's telling me, "Kelsey, come here." And I walked over to her and I was like, "What?" And she pointed out, she said, "That's Rosanna Dana." And that's the very first time I ever saw Rosanna Dana in person. And on the magnet, it was like pink, and the character's going like, and had black hair. And then there was also something else that stood out about the magnet. It said on the top, "It just goes to show you, it's always something." That stood out to me because ever since I was a kid, I would always say, "Isn't that something?" Or "It just goes to show you, it's always something." Like, I had never watched an episode of Saturday Night Live. I knew who Rosanna Dana was, but I had never seen a skit. So the fact that not only did I resemble Rosanna Dana, but I also said her catchphrase a lot without even knowing who she was. Really stood out. So, of course, I bought the magnet. It's still on my fridge today. But I walk a few feet and I see graphic tees, which, so you can see by my shirt, I love graphic tees. And it was this cool black shirt with some blue on it, and it said not ready for primetime players. And my mom then points out that's the person who plays Rosanna Dana. It didn't tell me her name or anything. I just knew that was the person who played her. And I wanted the shirt, but it was either between the magnet or the shirt. I didn't have enough money for the shirt, so I purchased the magnet. So fast forward a bit more. At this point, I think this was in high school. Pretty sure this was in high school at this point. My mall had a Walden Books in there, and it was going out of business. So that was a young reader's dream, because all the books in the store were like 50 to 70% off. Some were 80% off. So that's like basically free. And this one book stood out to me. You've ever seen magazines and they're like special editions based on like a celebrity or like a show's anniversary or something. This one, I don't remember the title exactly, but it said people on it. And I think it said greatest people of all time, something like that. I could have literally opened that book to any page. Like, usually, like, I'll page through a couple pages, see if the book's worth my time. I could have literally opened that book to any page. I open it up. Very first thing was Gilda Radner. And my very first thought and the very first picture that caught my eye was in the lower corner. It was her and Gene Wilder. And I remember looking at Gilda, and my first thought was, she is so beautiful. And then I saw on top, this Rosanna Dana. So I'm like, okay, made the connection. That's Gilda Radner. That's who plays Rosanna Dana. Unfortunately, what I did not know up until that point was that Gilda Radner had died in 1989. And at this point, it was probably around 2008, 2009. So for all I knew, she was still alive and everything. And that was the first time I had realized that Gilda Radner was gone. And I went for years thinking that she was alive. So that was like heartbreaking, because like I said, I thought she was alive all this time. And so, yeah, I thought that was sad, but then I looked below and I saw what she died from, and it was ovarian cancer. So I have a family history of cancer, so it isn't like I haven't heard of it before. I just never heard of ovarian cancer. Like, I had a lot of people in my family have lung cancer, a few had breast cancer. I had an aunt that had uterine cancer, but never ovarian cancer. And what I learned is that it's a very tough cancer to beat, because by the time people are symptomatic, it's often in the later stages, and therefore makes it harder to beat. And that's what happened to Gilda. And I'll get into the specific tie-ins later in the video. But by the time they figured out something was wrong, Gilda was already in stage 4, and the cards were stacked against her at that point. And again, I'll get into more of that later. But something told me, I want to learn more about her. I was like, there has to be more to her than Rosanna Dana and the fact that she died of ovarian cancer. So I go to my local Books A Million, and I'm just looking for like a box set of Saturday Night Live, because I went through a phase where I was getting like box sets from a bunch of different shows. And at that point, I don't think I was ready to watch Saturday Night Live, only because I was watching like a ton of different shows at the time. I was watching Mad TV, so I wasn't in the mindset to like watch a brand new show, like be committed, But I don't believe I saw any box sets, but what I did see was a standalone DVD, and it said Saturday Night Live, The Best of Gilda Radner. Well, I think that's better, because that's all Gilda Radner skits. So I'm thinking like, ooh, I'll get to see some Rosanna Dana, because again, at that point, I only knew her for playing Rosanna Dana. So I go home and watch it. Very first skit that's on that DVD is Lisa Loopner. And I thought that whole skit was hysterical. When she's like, Lisa, when we go to the shop, right, I see the checker staring at you. Oh, Mom, that's just your imagination. I'm like, this is just so freaking funny. Like, the whole skit was hysterical. And I think the one that really gets me is Emily Latella. That skit is just freaking genius. Even today, like, that skit never fails to make me laugh. And I could seriously sit there and like to try to like hold it together, do not laugh. And I'm like, nope, got it. Like the other day, one I thought was hysterical. She's like, what's all this I keep hearing about the Eagle Rights Amendment? Well, I think that the eagle gets enough rights. Well, next thing you know, we're going to give rights to pigeons. If we're going to give rights to anyone, we should give rights to parrots. At least they talk. Or she'll be like, what's this I keep hearing about violins on television? It's terrible. What? No, Miss Latella. Violence on television, not violins. Oh, well, that's different. Never mind. It's so fucking funny. I love it. Oh my gosh. But then when I got to the end of the DVD, I felt sad because I'm like, oh, this is over. I mean, this was, probably her best stuff. And it was great. And I was like, God, I want to know more. And I saw that she had a book out. So I'm like, oh, great. I'll read that. And I read that. I read Bunny by Ellen Zobel. And this other one called Gilda, an Intimate Portrait. It was years ago, so I didn't remember the books. All I remembered was that it was so sad. It was so sad. So I only came back to Gilda Radner's story every few years because I found her stories very sad. It wasn't until recently that I realized that I have this connection with her. So one of the things about me is that I have a hard time with reading comprehension. I can read a book fine, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what I just read. So one of my friends who used to be my reading teacher recommended me to write books, not write, but listen to books on tape. And I saw that Gilda's book, It's Always Something, which I think that's such an amazing title, there's an audio version. And not only was it an audio version, but it was narrated by Gilda. So I thought, wow, this would be a magical experience, like listening to her, not only her words, but her reading it. So, of course, I was invested, but I also knew that it would take time to listen to it. So I made the decision, on my day off, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to listen to it. And I listened to the whole thing. And let me tell you, for people that know me knows I love sad movies. No sad movie has ever made me cry. I've watched Beaches. Beaches is probably my favorite movie. I've watched Terms of Endearment. I've watched Schindler's List. I've watched Fried Green Tomatoes. Those are just some of the sad ones that I think of. Now, granted, Schindler's List, pulled at the heartstrings a bit, but not one of them had made me cry. I've watched Bambi's mom get killed. I've watched Widow Tweed putting Todd in the forest with all the other animals. Nothing made me cry. I listened to Gilda's book. I kid you not, I cried. And not just like I stubbed my fucking toe cried, I lost it. I was just flabbergasted by the whole thing. Like, I've read autobiographies before, but nothing compares to this one. Like, sometimes, people like to stretch the truth or sugarcoat stuff. This was 100% like real. Like, she did not hold back or anything. And I think there was a couple things that made me emotional. One of the first things that really got to me in her book was the fact that she wanted to become a mom so bad, and ovarian cancer had crushed that dream of hers. And like, even before she got diagnosed, she wanted a baby so badly and tried everything to try to make that dream come true, and it didn't. And normally people in that situation would be devastated, and I'm sure she was devastated, but she still went on. Like, she didn't let that like defeat her, you know. That's not to say that it wasn't a blow to her or anything. And I feel like that got to me because there's so many people that should not be parents and, you know, basically shouldn't have kids. And here's somebody who wanted to be a mom, who wanted a baby so badly, and that never happened for her. And I just thought that was so heartbreaking. I think the other thing that got me was the fact that she went misdiagnosed for so many years. And like, she knew that something was wrong. I mean, you talk about women's intuition all the time, and this is a perfect example of how people should listen to women more. Because she had all these symptoms, she knew something was up, and she went to how many different doctors. They varied from diagnosing her with Epstein-Barr or Mittelschmerz or something. And then even, I believe, one saying that it was like all in her head, but she knew something was wrong. And I think it was like 10 months to a year later, she finally gets diagnosed with ovarian cancer. But by the time she was diagnosed, I wouldn't say that there wasn't much they can do, but it would be hard to be like, and she did everything that the doctors told her to do. She did chemotherapy, she did radiation, she did some not controversial methods, but she did some, I guess, just new methods. Basically anything the doctors told her to do, she did. And because of a computer error, she thought she was in remission when actually her cancer was going, I guess this test that they test to see if the cancer is going down, as in it's going away, or going up, as in it's spreading, and it was going up and starting to spread. So at that point, there wasn't much they can do. And had she been diagnosed when she went to that first doctor, there's a very, very good chance she still would have been alive today. And that really hit home for me, because I felt, when I read that book, I felt everything that Gilda went through. I felt all the worry, all the uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen next, everything she went through in her life. And I'll get to a little bit more of that later. But I went through almost the exact same experience with Gilda. Now, granted, I wasn't diagnosed with ovarian cancer, but I did go through almost the same exact thing with her that she went through. So it starts with me having right side pain. And normally when one thinks of right side pain, one fears appendicitis. It didn't hurt like to the degree that I've heard people that have appendicitis has, but I knew something didn't feel right. Like, my side would hurt and it would catch me off guard to the point where I couldn't breathe. Like, it felt like a panic attack. And I have heard, like, because I've had anxiety for years since I was in high school, and I got diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. And I've had like anxiety attacks, panic attacks before, but this was so intense. And I thought this was just an intense anxiety attack. Well, one night I'm staying over at my Nana's house, and I thought I was having a heart attack. So I call 911 myself, and they rushed me to the hospital in an ambulance, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. They tried to, I don't know if this doctor was their first time on the job, but they couldn't stick me with a needle. So I believe they had to put one in my thigh, and then they wanted to put a port in me. And my mom, thank goodness, advocated for me and said, no, we are taking her home, because the hospital by my Nana's house was not a good hospital. So let's say if there was something wrong, she at least wanted me to be in a good hospital where I could be taken care of properly. So we drove an hour, which the doctor wasn't going to let me leave because he's like, well, this doctor was saying I was having an aneurysm. So he was saying like I only had like minutes. I'm thinking on the ride home to the better hospital, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die. And my mom kept like checking in with me. Are you okay? Are you okay? Yeah. So we got there. And my mom tells them, because I'm having a hard time answering questions, my mom tells them I have autism. They then say, oh, well, she's just having an anxiety attack. We're going to put her on meds. I've been on meds ever since then. And I went home. They said I'm just having severe anxiety attacks, just to rest up, whatever. And at that point, I was trying to do like everything I could to stay calm because, the doctors made me believe it was an anxiety attack. And something told me that wasn't right because, like I said, I've had anxiety attacks before. They never were on the right side. If I was having an anxiety attack, it was always like in the center, like in my chest. So about 6 months or so go by. I don't get that pain again. Come January-ish, I start getting that pain again. Like, it wasn't as bad as before, but eventually as the months go by, it gets gradually worse. Then comes in the summertime, I felt this intense pain again, and I told my mom I need to go to the hospital. My mom again tells them I have autism, and they immediately send me home. They said that it's all in my head, that I'm just having an anxiety attack and basically, kind of looking for attention. And, well, I wouldn't go as far as like looking for attention, but they said, oh, well, she has autism. She's just worrying about too much. So I get sent home and I'm thinking like, why am I being sent home? Like, I'm telling you something is wrong. So I go to work the next day and I just remember feeling off. Like, you know that feeling when you're about to get sick? I had this feeling the whole day. I went home, I made pasta like I usually would, and it just felt off. Like I didn't eat my whole pasta, and that is unusual for me because when I make pasta, I eat the whole fucking bowl. And I started getting this pain again. It was like this. It was like stretched like that, like getting worse. And I said to my mom, I was like, Mom, something is not right. You have to take me to the hospital. So instead of going to the hospital and getting sent home again, we went to urgent care to see. And by the time I go to urgent care, I can't sit down. Like I'm in that much pain. Like I have to stand up. And when I get back to an exam room, I am in so much pain. I'm like moaning and everything. They do like a blood and urine test and everything. And that was the fastest I ever got any of those tests back because it probably wasn't more than 5-10 minutes later. The nurse runs in and says, you need to get her to the ER ASAP. Like this is an emergency. So I'm freaking out. My mom's freaking out. My mom rushes me into the hospital. Thank God it was only like 10 minutes from that urgent care. And by the time I get to the ER, I am in so much pain I can't answer questions. I'm on the floor screaming and crying for them to do something. I'm in so much pain. I was in that much pain they couldn't put a needle in me because they said you need to sit down for it, and I'm screaming and crying. And they can't get, and they know they need to get some pain meds in me because obviously I'm at like a 10 times infinity in pain. And they must have given me some pain meds because I don't remember what happened after that. I know before I went sleepy night, my mom was like grabbing by my shoulders, just like, we're going to get through this and I will take you anywhere you want to go. If we can get through this, I will take you anywhere you want to go. So I'm thinking to myself, this is serious. Like, what's going on? They do all these tests. They send me, I believe, I don't know if I went for a CT scan or an MRI. I don't remember what test I had. They went through all the tests. They could not figure out what was wrong. So I remember saying to my mom, can you ask a question? And she thought maybe it was like a medical question I didn't understand. And I said, am I dying? Because I seriously thought this is it. Like I'm dying. Like I'm going to die in this hospital. Finally, I don't remember how they found out, but they learned that it was gallstones and there was, don't remember if it was called an obstruction or a blockage, but basically what they needed to do is do a surgery to see what was exactly going on and where this was, and then they essentially had to wake me up and then put me under for another surgery in less than 24 hours, like basically like 12 hours in between. So it was insane. But how Gilda went diagnosed for 10 months, like mine also was, I went 10 months without till I got diagnosis, and people did not take her seriously because I believe that they didn't see her as Gilda. They saw her as the characters she played on Saturday Night Live. Just like I feel like they didn't take me seriously, one, because I was a woman, which I also think that was a factor with Gilda. Also, two, because I have autism, so they automatically think like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about or anything. So I definitely felt that. Like I knew exactly what that felt like because I also went 10 months without a diagnosis. Had the surgery, it was successful. I had to get my gallbladder taken out, but had I not been insistent on getting to the hospital or something, I could have been in serious trouble. There was talk at one point that had I not gone to the hospital, and I did, like if I would have waited a few days later, I could have went into liver failure. That's one of the things the doctor said. At that point, I wasn't believing anything the doctor said, but that was like one of the connections I automatically felt with Gilda, you know. And the connections then seemed to get deeper. And it wasn't like the typical like, oh, we have the same favorite color or we like the same singer. Like this is stuff that I couldn't have known had I, like it's facts that a normal family couldn't have known. Like, for example, when I was in high school, I used to give some of my teachers nicknames as a way to be informal without being a little snot-nosed rugrat. So one of my teachers I nicknamed Sunshine. This teacher I met senior year, I thought her personality was so sparkly. Her nickname was Sparkle. Gilda's dog was named Sparkle. She had a brother, I had a brother. The age difference between the two, exactly 5 years. That's exactly, for me and my brother, exactly 5 years. And I can look at my iPad here because I did write down a few things because I'm just like, wow. Obviously our hair, and I'm sure there's, lots of people that have thick hair, but the fact that even my mom will say like, oh, your hair looks like Gilda Radner's today, which, I take that as a compliment. Let me see here. Yeah, so I did struggle with my weight growing up. Now, I didn't have eating disorders like Gilda did, but with anxiety, sometimes I do go a couple days without eating anything because my anxiety is so high, like I can't eat anything. Or when I'm finally able to eat something, it has to be so bland. But we kind of get that. Like we've always struggled with weight. Like I never was like a stick in school. Like I always was in bigger clothes and everything. And I didn't get like, oh, why can't I wear a pretty pink shirt in this kids section like the other people in my class were? And I was taller. I once won an award for the tallest second grader. So I was a bigger kid. One of the things, and I really wish I could figure out where I saw this. It was some interview or whatever, but she had a teacher the same name that she claimed was her favorite, and that's the same name as my teacher that I claim is my favorite. We both wanted to be loved. We both wanted people to like us. With being autistic, you just want to be accepted. Like I found that when people meet me, they think one thing and it'll go for a while and things will be going great. But then once they get to know me and they see that I'm not like everybody else, and they see that I'm a little bit needy and I'll admit sometimes can be clingy, and hear the words autistic, then they're suddenly disappointed. And that's when they start to ignore me and ditch me. And then they don't see me as Kelsey anymore. They only see me as somebody with autism. And it gets very lonely, and you kind of lose your trust in people, because then you don't know, like, who can you trust? And if this person says they want to be your friend, are they actually being genuine? Because I've been told at some points, I've had some people tell me that I should tell them I'm autistic right off the bat, because then I will weed out the bad seeds. But then I have also been told to wait a little bit to tell them, because it's not necessary. But it's like, either way, I get hurt. And as I've been reading up about Gilda, I've seen that too, that, all she wanted was to be loved and for people to like her. And the fans loved her. Like, she's so great, like a treasure and everything. Like, there's not one person that I have seen on any message boards, any fans that have said they didn't like Gilda Radner. Everybody loves her. But I think what I mean is, like, she must have had, like, people that she has met, like, in the past that have, like, I think maybe treated her differently, but also didn't understand her, and that could be very frustrating. So I think sometimes maybe lashed out because they weren't understanding her or why she was upset. And that could get very lonely, because I think it took Gilda a while to have those few close friends that truly, understood her. I'm still trying that out, because I don't really have people that understand me. But anyway, let's go back to this. So when I watched that Best of Gilda Radner DVD, one of the things I noticed was in her Judy Miller skit, the bedroom set, like, we're talking bed, dressers, everything, was the exact same bedroom set I had as a kid. And yeah, up until high school, I had still had the whole dresser set. I don't know what happened to the bed, but, whatever. Both new styles. Her brother was named Michael. My brother's middle name is Michael. Let me see. So here was one of them that really got me. I was supposed to be born on the day Gilda died. And let me give you a little backstory on that. So Gilda had died May 20th, 1989. I was born in 1993. I am going to clarify it with my mother, but I was supposed to be born around May 20th. And I had to be taken early because I had a heart defect. It's corrected now, but had I not been born early, I was supposed to be born on the day Gilda died. And the other thing that got me was, well, I'll get to that last one in a bit, but I read this interview, I think it was Lorraine Newman, saying that Gilda acted kind of maternal towards her, I guess because there was a bit of an age difference was a part of it, but then also Lorraine Newman was also the youngest cast member. So I think, she kind of took on that motherly role, and I've always gravitated toward people that mommed me. Like, I found that people my own age don't understand me, but people that are older than me, that have more experience in life and know people like me, I get along much better with them. So I thought that was something. We both had a parent that had a brain tumor. Her parent died, mine survived, but we both had a parent that had a brain tumor. I guess the last two, last three. So she used writing as a way to cope with stress. Like, I had no idea until recently that she helped write like a lot of her characters, and she wrote, like, I saw the documentary of Gilda, like she had so many like journals and everything, like she wrote all the time. And right around, I think it was probably around the time, probably a little before I went to the NBC store that time, I started writing, and I loved it. Like when I get writing stuff on a test, when it's something I don't care about, I struggle with. But when it's like something I know, it just comes to me, the words just flow. So I thought that was amazing. I guess the last two things that really got me is, so I'm trying to figure out which one of these to talk about first. I think, as I mentioned, I think I mentioned we were both needy, and we were kind of insecure about ourselves. Like she was insecure about her weight, and then I am too. Like I always look in the mirror and I think I'm ugly looking. You know, I don't like myself at all. She also had a fear of abandonment, and I think I also have that because I constantly have to check in with people, like, hey, are we still good? Like, you're still with me, right? Like, you're not gonna leave me. And yeah. Where was it? I just literally, okay. So, I guess the big one would be that, so the little backstory on this last little connection here is I've gone to a lot of conventions before, and that was a big deal for me because the large crowds and noise, like it could get very intense. And I love the show Once Upon a Time. I think it's great, fairy tale. I mean, from a writer's perspective, I thought, original script. I've met like half of the Once Upon a Time cast, like at least the main cast anyway, at conventions, and they were all great and everything. Like I thought it was the best thing ever that I got to go up to Evil Queen's table and, talk to her. Of course, the very first time I met her, I was so taken back that I'm in the presence of Her Majesty. Like I couldn't say anything. Now, after the fifth or sixth time, now it's like we're old friends talking. But I've had these like amazing guest interactions. Like I've gotten the photo op, we've hugged in photos, which is huge for me because I hate it when people hug me. And like had about 2-minute conversation at the autograph table, got a picture autographed. It was great. It's only recently I realized that I'll never get to have that with Gilda. I'll never get to have like a photo op with her or go up to the table and have a conversation with her, have her sign something, or even tell her like it's okay. And that's something when she was going through cancer, that's something that she wanted people to say to her, that it would just be okay and nobody could tell her that. And, just be able to talk to her, and I can't do that. So I thought of the next best thing is to write to her. Because the other thing too is like, I thought, well, sometimes, people write fan letters or something. I can't write a fan letter, but I can write letters to her, like in a diary. Took a page out of Gilda's book and wrote in a diary as if I was writing, I guess partly writing to Gilda, but also if I was writing a fan, like a fan letter. And I won't say what I talk about with her because, that's between me and Gilda. But it's very cleansing. And I realized that that's actually a really good thing, because not that it wouldn't be amazing to meet Gilda at a convention. I'm not saying that. But what I've noticed with conventions, at least with the ones I've went to, is that sometimes they really rush you. So when you're already in that nervous situation, when you're about to meet your idol, it can ruin the con experience. And there's been times where it's almost ruined the experience for me. So it could have been a situation where, Gilda's very popular, so it is possible she might have had a bigger crowd, so they might have rushed me along, which would have made me more nervous, which would have triggered an anxiety attack, etc. So with this, I have all the time in the world. I don't have to feel like I'm being rushed or anything. I can write as much as I want, for how long as I want. I can talk to Gilda and not worry about people behind me giving me dirty looks and everything and saying mean stuff behind my back. Yeah. And so I really do like that I can, have still keep that connection with her, and it gets I feel like it gets deeper. And then I realized what the last one was. So the last connection, and the one this really hit home for me, is that she also had an anxiety disorder. And I knew she struggled with anxiety, but I don't remember where I read it, but it did say that she did have an anxiety disorder. She struggled with anxiety her whole life. And that was huge for me because, unfortunately, mental illness or mental health is still a taboo, and people don't want to understand anxiety, and they don't get anxiety. They don't want to get anxiety. And, you're often judged because people think, oh, you're crazy, or, oh, what do you have to be stressed about? And I'm willing to bet you people like me and Gilda and a lot of you out there that have anxiety have probably heard this so many times. What do you have to be stressed about? Why are you so anxious all the time? You're just causing so much drama. You're such a burden. Your stress stresses me out. All of that stuff. And you really feel alone. Then you're like, oh, I understand you. I really understand you. But have you really walked a mile in our shoes? And to hear that, I have all these connections with her, but then also the fact that she had anxiety, struggled with anxiety like me, that meant everything to me. The fact that there's somebody out there like me. I don't usually like to talk about my therapy sessions, but something last week really stood out. And again, I'm not one to cry. I've been struggling the past couple weeks, so I've been trying to cry, and I watched watching different things with Gilda. Like I said, I read her autobiography. I watched Love Gilda, great documentary if you haven't seen it. And if you don't know Gilda Radner, that's a great way to get to know Gilda Radner. Then also, I don't know what drew me to it, but I saw the show called Autopsy, and it was the last few hours of Gilda Radner, and I freaking lost it again. And it just goes back to she could still be alive today if she wasn't misdiagnosed. And I felt every feeling she had ever gone through her whole life. I felt it all. I felt the anxiety she had her whole life. I felt the insecurity, cleans, everything. I just remember I just kept crying, saying it wasn't your fault. You did nothing wrong. And in my session the next day, like I said, I won't go into details, but something stood out. I said how we talked about how I have anxiety, and so did Gilda. So I said she's exactly like me. And I went on later saying that I feel like not a lot of people in the world understand me, whether it's autism, anxiety, depression, even sometimes when I'm really anxious, I'll scratch my hands open. Technically, that would be considered self-harm, but not many people understand me. But the words that came out of my mouth, I said, not a lot of people, see, I'm gonna get emotional. Not a lot of people, understand me, but Gilda understands me. She knows every single thing that I've gone through. I know every single thing that she's gone through. And granted, there's probably some stuff I don't know, but we've gone through a lot of the same stuff, and it's been a very lonely journey. And I feel like Gilda's the only person in the whole like world that understands me and truly accepts me. And one might say, well, she's gone, how can she do that? And I know she's gone, but I feel like she's still here, if that makes sense. I feel like she's there when I'm getting bullied. I feel like she's there when I struggle fitting in and making friends. And I feel like when the whole world shuts the door and slams the door in my face, I feel like Gilda's there. And I can remember just recently I was struggling, and I heard clear as day. I swear I heard clear as day. How can you make the situation funny? Make this situation funny because that gives you all the power. And that's what comedy is. And I didn't know about that until I saw it in a documentary and learned more about her. That's how she felt about comedy. And I made a bad situation funny. I laughed about it. The people at my work were so surprised. They said, Kelsey, we've never seen you laugh before. We had no idea you were this funny. I was making jokes. I was like, lines were spot on. We were joking. We were laughing so hard. We were almost on the floor laughing. I almost peed my pants at one point, and it was just amazing. And I feel like she's always there for me. Even when she's, like not here, I feel like she's here. And I think that's so special to have that connection, even though I've never met her in my life. And I think there's a little bit of grieving there, because it's also realizing like I won't get to see her in person or do those things with her. I mean, granted, I did, come up with even better things I could do, like writing to her and everything, but also like it never like, I mean, I knew she was dead, but like it didn't really like hit me until recently, like, oh, she's gone. I like, it's complicated. Like, I knew for years, but it didn't really hit me. So I've kind of been like processing that and processing like all the things that she's went through. And I've had I'm sure we all have that one celebrity, actor, actress, musician, etc. that we all love, that we're fans of. And I'm fans of, I wouldn't say I'm picky, but I have a select few of actresses I like. But I feel like with Gilda, like, this goes beyond that. Like, I have this unique connection with her. Like the Evil Queen. Like, I've met her at cons before. She is probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. But I've never, like, had, like, a connection in the sense that, like, our lives were so similar. Like, with Gilda, our lives there's, like, so many freaking connections and stuff that I had no idea for years until I just recently, started researching her and, looking up stuff about her and everything. And like I said, the Evil Queen, Lana Priya, she's nice and everything, but it's like her life and my life don't match up, if that makes sense. Like, mine and Gilda's, like, I feel like very connected to her. And even though I can write to her. I really do wish, I mean, when I write to her, I am kind of like having a conversation with her, but I really wish I could have a face-to-face conversation with her and just tell her. And this is exactly what I would say if I had the chance to meet Gilda. This is exactly what I would say to her. I would say, without crying too much, because, you know, I'm in the presence of Gilda Radner, I would be like, Gilda, it's okay. I know you. I understand you. I accept you. And I love you. You don't have to change anything about yourself because you are amazing and perfect just the way you are. And I feel like you're exactly like me and I'm exactly like you. And I feel like you're the only person in the world that truly understands me, Gilda. And you have saved my life in many ways, literally and mentally, and you've unlocked potential I didn't even think I had or was even capable of, and I feel like I'm connected to you. And I just love her. And without focusing too much on her illness, like, it's just not fair. And I'm sure all the people that have known Gilda and been lucky enough to be in her presence would agree that it's just not fair. She was taken far too soon. Like I'll watch interviews of her on YouTube and old SNL skits, and she was fine. She was so funny. I've seen other comedic actresses before, but none come close to Gilda's humor. Like, her humor was just, like, I don't even think she had to try to be funny. Like, I feel like it just came naturally to her. Like, she was just naturally funny, and she's just a rare gem that I don't think we'll ever see again. She definitely was one in a million, and that might sound cliche, but it definitely was one in a million. And I think the other thing that stands out about Gilda is that she seems so genuine. Like, you see so many actors and actresses, they have this one persona, but then when you actually meet them, it's a different story. I remember I went to a book signing once for a celebrity. It was a classic actress and everything. And I guess from what I heard from the book place, there was a well-known celebrity that came the day before, and they had so many rules, and they were, from what I heard, that they were so snobby and everything, and they wouldn't let fans come up to the table and talk to them or anything. Like, it basically was not a good interaction. But I feel like Gilda would have loved to see her fans know how much that she meant to them. I feel like I need to honor Gilda and her legacy and her memory. As you can see, I'm wearing my Love Gilda shirt from the movie, which I thought it was great that they came out with shirts. I only wish I knew about that sooner. I had this girl I work with make Gilda bracelets. I have 2 more coming, but this one is, of course, says Gilda, but then it has like beads for like her characters that she played on SNL, at least my favorite ones, like Lisa Loopner, Emily Latella, Roseanne Rosenadana. But then all throughout it has the color pink, which is my favorite color, and it connects us. And there's like teal for ovarian cancer, teal for anxiety, because we both had anxiety. She had ovarian cancer. There's lilac for eating disorders, because she had an eating disorder, and blue for autism. Like, it's a very meaningful bracelet. And then this one on the bottom here, I basically told her, my coworker, I said, go nuts. I said, I want you to do a mystery bracelet on Gilda. She did her own research on her, and this is what she came up with, and I thought she did a fantastic job. She really went into detail. She wrote from like awards. She did beads for like awards that she's won to like, I think she even had a purple bead on there for like Gene Wilder. Just different ones, but it was very meaningful. And I feel like I just need to keep her alive, if that makes sense. Like, she's gone, but that doesn't mean she should be forgotten. Like, she should always be remembered, and not just for the fact that she died of ovarian cancer. I mean, I don't think that that should be forgotten about, but that's not who Gilda is. And she shouldn't be known as just Rosanna Dana or Emily Latella, even though I fucking love Emily Latella. But I think, like, when you admire celebrities, you sometimes run into, and I think it's like a common mistake we all make, that we only see them as that one character we play. Like, take Once Upon a Time, for example. Once Upon a Time has been off the air for about 5 years now, and she's done a few roles since the Evil Queen, but people only see her as the Evil Queen. And I think to a degree celebrities like that, but at the same time, they don't want to be remembered solely as that. Like, I think with Gilda, like, of course, like, wants to be admired for like all the work and characters she's done, but I think we need to remember her as Gilda and love and accept her and embrace her. And I think that's what she wanted her whole life, is just for people to accept her for her, to love her, to accept her for everything, for how needy, unique, clingy she was. Like me, like, I just want to be accepted for that and not have somebody like try to change you. Like, realize, like, okay, and I don't like to say faults. I really don't, because I don't think Gilda has any faults. But like, we have these things, but that's not who I am. Just like autism isn't who I am. It's a part of me, but that isn't who I am. And like, I don't want to be remembered as the person who has autism. Like, I want to be remembered as Kelsey. And I think that's what Gilda would want too. And I've been really trying to keep her memory alive. I've in this writing class, and I did this whole nonfiction piece about her, and it wasn't like a biography or anything. It was just nonfiction, like basically telling a little bit about her life and tied into my life, and got a B+ on it. And of course, me being too hard on myself, I'm like, well, it wasn't an A. I hope I honored her well with that. And I even wrote a poem about her. I think I wrote about 10 poems about her since, I made this connection with her. And yeah, I feel like, and then I make like posts about her on Facebook like every other day. Like, I'll either share a picture of her or a quote that she said, or even like today I shared a picture on Facebook of me in my Gilda shirt. I think I also got my bracelets in there. But yeah, I even got people at work to watch some Emily Latella. I got them to watch some Emily Latella the other night. They thought it was hysterical. They'd never heard of it before. So yeah, I love Gilda. I love learning more about her, and I can't wait to learn more about her. And I love this connection I have with her. And this video is another way to honor her, but then also to basically like explain what she means to me. You know what I mean? So I hope if you guys are Gilda fans out there, you watch this. And if you are friends of Gilda, you watch this. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Maybe at some point or another, I'll make another video in my I Have Autism series about Gilda. I might just make a separate video about Gilda herself, maybe about just certain roles she did or whatever. But I definitely hope to make another Gilda video again. But hope you guys enjoyed my I Have Autism Gilda Radner video. And until next time, stay regal.